Yesterday, 31-23 behind a few key weapons. We mentioned Amari Cooper. At another strong performance by Ezekiel Elliott. He finished with 143 total yards and a touchdown in the Cowboys' third straight win. Nick, how impressive has Zeke looked lately?
Man, lately and all season and his whole career. How about this? Since the start of 2017, he is tied for the league lead in 100-yard rushing games. Why is that noteworthy? He missed 6 games that year. So even though he's had 6 fewer opportunities than Todd Gurley, the guy he's tied with, he is at the top of the league as far as monster rushing games. 3 in a row now for him. This is the Zeke we were hoping to see at the beginning of the season. We're now seeing maybe at a better time at the tail end of the season.
Yeah, I think he is even better. I think that this offseason, he thought, like a lot of younger players, let me put on some additional bulk, some additional weight. Then they start realizing when I get in the season, you know something, I don't need that additional weight. I think he's gotten a little bit leaner as the season's gone on. He's far more patient than he was the first 5 or 6 games. And his open field running is elite. That offensive line now playing in sync, getting him to that second level. That's why he's putting this special season together, Jenna.
All right, Falcons fell to the Saints 31-17 last night. They had no answer for Drew Brees, who threw 4 touchdowns, while Matt Ryan and the offense turned the ball over 4 times. Atlanta is now eliminated in the NFC South. Nick, how disappointing has this season been for the Falcons?
Well, wildly, particularly the last few weeks, where if you're the Falcons, it looked like you maybe were going to be able to claw your way out of that 1-3 start, or that 1-4 start, pardon me. But then Cleveland blows you out. You lose a game to Dallas that surprised everyone, and everyone had kind of expected you to lose last night. It's why those early starts, losing at the last second New Orleans, not being able to punch in against Philly, losing at the last second to Cincy, that killed you, along with obviously all those injuries.
Yeah, I still have a lot of faith in the Falcons moving forward. It's one of those type of seasons that you're not making excuses, but injuries are a part of the game. There are certain teams who will not be able to overcome their injuries, and that's what they have. Devontae Freeman's been out most of the season. Wholesale changes because of major starters out on that defense. Dan Quinn is still one of the elite coaches we have in this league, and Steve Sarkisian did a great job this year as far as red zone and incorporating these young receiver Ridley from Alabama in with Julio Jones.
All right, the other game yesterday, let's end with the Bears and Lions. Chicago's defense coming up big once again, intercepting Matt Stafford twice, including a pick 6. Bears win 23-16 to improve to 8-3 on the year. See, is it time to start taking Chicago seriously as Super Bowl contenders?
Absolutely. If you can continue to play defense like that in the NFC, and if you look at where they are, I mean, they're just a game from getting that number 2 seed. And I know we're all this prolific scoring and everything, but earlier in the week, we talked about, man, is the NFL, is it going to be like the Monday night game? And you asked them with the question, man, can you pick, Chris, you can have one defense. Who are you going to take? I'm taking Chicago. And the reason why they do 2 things that even in this NFL are always still going to be effective, I don't care how many of the rule changes that they make. They got an elite pass rusher in Khalil Mack, who you have to double team so they can get to the passer. Now, and he's not a one-man band. They got substantial draft capital put into that offensive line. Linebackers can run sideline to sideline, can cover people in space, and their secondary, Nick, you've become more and more impressed with this secondary week in and week, because they got the same type of playmakers on the back end now that they have that can rush the passer.
And I'm talking about the secondary in just a second. To set the template for what C's talking about as far as where they are in the NFC, they're 8-3. Saints and Rams, obviously both 10-1. The Rams have to come to Chicago in a couple weeks in what will probably be cold, maybe a snowy environment. They do have a path where they could get one of those byes. We know they are in position to win the division and have at least one home game. And to win, they just won a game on the road in the shortest turnaround from game to game in the history of pro football.
Was it 88 hours?
They went from Sunday night football to not only playing Thursday. So people don't like go Sunday night to Thursday night. They went from Sunday night to Thursday at 12:30, and they had to travel. And they had a backup quarterback. And it was a divisional opponent. They have now won 3 divisional games in 11 days after losing their previous 10. They had been 0-10 in the division the previous 750 days. They've won 3 in the last 11. But a big part of that is what you were talking about, see, that secondary. And Eddie Jackson, who I think you coached against in Florida because you either coached or coached against half the damn league. Eddie Jackson is a guy who now, in a young NFL career, has 5 defensive touchdowns, 3 in the last 4 weeks, including 2 that swung games. 2 that were the deciding plays in critical games for them, the one against the Vikings and then the one yesterday against Detroit when it looked like Detroit might be able to take a lead. He's been a revelation for them. He's been a huge part of that secondary you're talking about.
But yesterday we talked about Mitch Trubisky and whether this team would miss him. Now moving forward, did it look like this defense, if they're going to go that far, is going to carry them? Does it matter if it's Chase, Daniel, or if it is Mitch Trubisky?
It matters. It matters. Now, they got through this game with Chase. Chase and the head coach, Matt Nagy, have some history together in Kansas City. So thinking that he could function at a high level and to be able to get the win, yes, they thought they could. But for the Chicago Bears, they got to keep developing Trubisky. Yeah. They got to keep him and be able to get the weapons, and they can run some run options, some RPOs, because he is a great athlete. He's got great legs. He's got a really strong arm, but he's not a thrower of the football. He's a thrower of the football now compared to be a pitcher of the football and a passer of the football. So that is going to continue to develop. He's had some big games this year, but it's still been up and down. If they're Super Bowl, if they're aspirations, it's because Trubisky continues to evolve as a passer.
One thing that he has going for him, you saw it yesterday with Chase, is similar to what we saw at moments in the Saints game. You got guys running wide open. Matt Nagy is scheming the hell out of this, out of these game plans, and he's got a lot of speed. Tariq Cohen is too little to be in the NFL. It doesn't make sense he's in the NFL. He is because he is so dynamic with the ball in his hands. Taylor Gabriel, who we saw have good moments with the Falcons a few years ago, he's another speed option.
And they use him the right way.
Absolutely right. They don't ask them to do things they're not comfortable with, and you see guys just all of a sudden, as Bart Scott would say, he fell for the banana in the tailpipe, guys running wide open. And so that's why Trubisky doesn't have to make a ton of huge throws. But you're right about him being a very good athlete, and they do want him back. Chase, who I think is the best backup in the league, did his job. But Trubisky has the 2nd most rushing yards of any quarterback in football, behind only Cam Newton.
Wow.
So they need him back. But this is, if weather's going to matter, if defense is going to matter, if the old adages about playoff football are going to matter, the Bears, they don't play in no dome. They don't play in a warm weather city. They are a team built to play in a city like Chicago.
I'm going to tell you one thing I thought was really just kind of refreshing to me. And people always try to bring back something from the past. You know, we had the Purple People Eaters in Minnesota, and we talk about the fearsome foursome with the Rams, and even though the Rams are an offensive attack now, and we talk about Chicago, the monsters of the Midway. To see Chicago's defensive coaches in the booth yesterday, and they had sweaters on that said monsters of the Midway. I was like, that's pretty cool on Thanksgiving to have football back, Chicago. Some defenses, it's not illegal to play defense in Chicago. They got a good defense.
Vic Fangio is doing a hell of a job in Chicago this year.
All right, let's look ahead to Sunday. The Patriots are hobbling their way into this weekend. Both Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski were limited in practice.